Alena had spent every Sunday of her life at St. James Church, where faith bound the community tighter than the thick, woven tapestries that adorned the sanctuary walls. The church's bell tower chimed each hour, a reminder that time moved not just forward but in a loop of services, gatherings, and endless potluck dinners. It was the backbone of the town, and everyone, young and old, found their place within it. At 26, Alena was seen as a pillar of the younger generation. Her voice led the choir, and her laughter brightened any room she entered. She was always willing to help, whether it was organizing food drives or reading to children in the church's library. The congregation adored her, and whispers of admiration followed her wherever she went. But for Alena, the recognition was only part of a more complex reality. The church gave her a sense of belonging, yet it sometimes felt like a gilded cage. Beyond her duties and familiar hymns, there was a quiet longing for more, a world beyond the steadfast faith that anchored her. She loved her community, but she yearned for conversations about art, culture, and dreams that stretched beyond the stained glass windows. One Sunday after the service, Alena stood near the entrance of the fellowship hall, sipping lemonade as children darted through the crowd, their giggles a song of innocence. Her mother, a soft-spoken woman with sharp eyes and a knack for reading between silences, approached her with a smile. "You know, Samuel's been asking about you," she said, with the kind of nonchalance that masked deeper intent. Alena followed her mother's gaze to where Samuel stood, his tall frame casting a confident shadow. He was animatedly talking to a group of younger members, his hands gesturing as he spoke. Samuel had been the church's youth leader for 3 years, known for his fiery sermons that left listeners on the edge of their seats. His eyes, sharp with conviction, met hers across the room, and he nodded with a smile. Alena returned the gesture, a flutter of uncertainty in her chest. Samuel was everything the community admired: devoted, charismatic, and ambitious. But despite her mother's hopeful words and the subtle nudges from other congregants, Alena felt an unspoken hesitation. Her mother, sensing her daughter's silence, squeezed her arm gently. "He's a good man, Alena. You should think about it." "Yes, Mama," Alena replied, forcing a smile. The familiar comfort of the church walls felt heavy that day, pressing down on the questions she kept tucked away in her heart. The next day, Alena found herself seated in a corner booth at the local cafe. The sun cast golden beams through the large windows, lighting up the small space filled with the scent of. When someone invited her for coffee the next day, Alena accepted, curious to see if their conversations would go beyond the familiar cadence of scripture and church events. The cafe was cozy, filled with the scent of cinnamon and roasting beans. They sat at a corner table, and Samuel, with his deep, resonant voice, spoke about his plans for expanding the youth ministry and creating outreach programs. "I've been thinking," he said, leaning forward, "we need more leaders who are as passionate as you. I can see us doing great things together." Alena felt a warmth from his compliment, but as the conversation stretched, she realized it revolved around church work and community events. He hadn't asked her once about her own dreams or how she felt beyond their shared commitments. "Samuel," she said, hesitating as she gathered her words, "what do you enjoy doing outside of the church?" His smile flickered, slightly surprised. "Outside?" He paused. "Well, the church takes most of my time. I find it fulfilling." Don't you? Yes, I do, she said, her smile soft but distant. A voice in her heart whispered that this was important. What did life look like beyond this? Did he have space for dreams that weren't scripted by fate alone? Their courtship became the topic of conversations throughout the church. The older women smiled knowingly when they saw Samuel and Alena talking after service. Younger girls whispered and giggled, casting glances at them. Yet, the more time they spent together, the clearer it became that Samuel's word was confined to sermons, plans for the congregation, and the identity he wore so proudly. One evening, after a long day at a charity event, Alena sat on the porch swing of her parents' house. The crickets sang their song, and the cool breeze brought a respite from the heat. Anna, an older family friend with kind eyes and stories that stretched back decades, sat beside her. "You seem troubled, dear," Anna said, her voice like the creak of the old swing. Alena sighed, the weight of her thoughts pressing down like the night sky. "It's Samuel. Everyone sees him as perfect, and he is, in so many ways. But I don't know if it's enough." Anna nodded slowly. "A heart filled with faith is beautiful, but marriage needs more. Love isn't just about shared beliefs, it's about how you carry each other's burdens and share dreams, even the unspoken ones." Alena felt a tear slip down her cheek. The truth resonated deep within her, unsettling and clarifying at once. Days turned into weeks, and Samuel continued to court her with the same unyielding energy. He brought her flowers with notes that quoted scripture and made plans for events that always involved the church. Alena felt cherished but unseen, as if the person she was outside the hymns and prayers didn't quite matter. It came to a head one evening when Samuel talked about a future where they led the congregation together, describing a life that was well lit with devotion but missing the shades and colors of individual dreams. "Samuel," Alena interrupted gently, her voice trembling. "Have you ever thought about what makes me happy, apart from church?" He blinked, taken aback. "Your happiness is in serving God, just like mine. Isn't that what you want?" She looked at him, realizing the answer she sought wasn't in his eyes but her own heart. She looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity but not the understanding she hoped for. "I think I'm searching for something I haven't found yet." Silence followed, heavy with unspoken thoughts. Samuel reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "I love your faith, Alena. I always thought we shared the same vision." Tears pricked her eyes as she whispered, "I wanted to believe that too." That evening, Alena sat with her parents at dinner. The clatter of silverware was the only sound as they ate in silence. Finally, her father spoke, his voice gruff but soft. "I saw you and Samuel at the park today." Alena nodded, feeling her mother's eyes on her. "Yes, we talked." Her mother cleared her throat. "Is everything all right? You've seemed distant." Alena set down her fork, taking a deep breath. "Mama, Papa, I love our church, our community. But I'm beginning to wonder if that's all there is for me. Samuel's life and mine, while they seem aligned, don't quite fit the way I thought they would." Her father's eyes softened, the lines around them deepening. "Your path doesn't have to be the same as everyone else's, Alena. If you need to explore what's beyond, do it. You'll always have our support." A weight lifted off her chest, and she felt a smile break through. The relief was immense, a rush of warmth that told her she was finally being true to herself. Alena found Samuel the next day in the church's small garden, tending to the flowers that lined the stone path. He looked up as she approached, his expression hopeful yet guarded. "Samuel," she began, her voice steady, "I've thought a lot about what we talked about. You mean so much to me, and what we've shared will always be important. But I don't think we're meant to walk the same path." Samuel's eyes darkened with hurt, but he nodded, the corners of his mouth tight. "I was afraid of that. It's not because I don't care," she added quickly. "It's because I need to find out who I am outside of this place, outside of what everyone expects." He sighed, a sound of acceptance. "I understand, Alena. You're braver than I am." Tears welled up in her eyes, and they stood in silence for a moment before Samuel reached out to touch her hand, a final goodbye that held more understanding than words could express. The months that followed were a mixture of excitement and fear. Alena explored her love for painting, taking classes in the city where she met people who inspired her with stories that were new and refreshing. She still attended services but no longer felt bound by the expectations of the community. Her faith evolved, deepened by the courage it took to step beyond the familiar. Anna, with her knowing eyes and wise words, visited Alena one afternoon, watching her mix colors on a palette with an approving smile. "You found your music, haven't you?" Alena looked up, a smile spreading across her face. "I think I have, Anna." Life continued in the town as it always had, but for Alena, everything had changed. She still walked the halls of St. James Church, still greeted familiar faces and led hymns, but she no longer felt the invisible chains that had once tethered her to a single path. She was both a part of the community and separate from it, free to explore what it meant to be herself. And as the seasons changed, so did Alena, becoming a woman who realized that faith was not just what tied her to others, but what gave her the strength to follow her heart into the unknown.